Hey, everybody. I'm Jeremy. I'm a grateful believer that loves Jesus. I'm a not ex-alcoholic and drug addict. I still am. I'm just not practicing those things anymore. And I struggle with insecurities and codependency. Y'all, it is October 26th. Just so you counting, it's 60 days to Christmas Day. So, that being said, if you take a blue chip tonight, on Christmas Day, you can take a green chip. That's how close it is, right? Needless to say, 2023 has flown by, and I don't know about y'all's lives, but my life has had lots of ups and downs this year, okay? Around February, I reached out to a friend of mine because I wanted to figure out why I was in this spiritual funk. Spiritual plateau, if you will. I knew Jesus. I was going through all my processes of reading the Bible and praying and listening to audiobooks about, God and spirituality and religion, thinking that maybe I wasn't doing something right because honestly, I was missing something in my life and I wasn't hearing from God. My friends were. My wife was. What was I doing wrong? I just couldn't figure it out. Every day I started my day by asking God what His will was for my day, my week, my life. And there I stood, being still like I was told to do, be still nothing but crickets. I started a Bible study my friend had mentioned, and almost immediately things started to change. See, I had been waiting on God to join me where I was, and I learned real quick that isn't how it works. See, God is always at work, constantly. And what I had to learn is if I wanted to hear from Him, I needed to join Him where He was, not waiting on Him to join me. I was so excited to know this, right, that I jumped all over this Bible study thinking the faster that I dove into this Bible study, the faster that I would hear from God. I was going so fast through this Bible study, y'all, that when me and a few of my friends would get together once a week, they would ask me what I'd learned, and I'd be like, I don't remember. I was just going so fast through it, which told me that I needed to slow down. My whole life needed to slow down, regroup, and just focus on finding where God was at work and joining Him where He was. And about that same time, our step study started. I knew I needed to work the steps again because it had been 3 years since I had worked them, and quite a lot has changed in the last 3 years. Am I right? I mean, unless you've been under a rock since 2020, the pandemic has changed just about how we all go about living our lives, right? I took on a new ministry when we came back from lockdown or shutdown or whatever you want to call it from the pandemic, and it has enriched my life more. Do what? No, yeah, that's kind of not a word to use at CR, right? Sorry about that. But I took on. Right. I took on a new ministry when we came back from the pandemic, and it's enriched my life more than anything than anything I can describe. Watching students live changed lives and getting closer to Jesus is amazing. It's humbling is what it is. Sometimes I just stand in awe about their relationship with Jesus and wish that when I was a teenager that I had done that same thing myself. Let's see what else changed in my life this year. I was part of starting a church, then I wasn't. I was leaving CR in Eastridge, then I wasn't. I lost some good friends in the middle of all that, and I grieved them. I almost pushed my wife and my marriage to a point of crisis, all for God to show me that we were exactly where He wanted us, right here at Celebrate Recovery Eastridge, in the landing, doing what He had lined up for us to do. But needless to say, ups and downs, and then He sets up this step study because not only after I'm going through all this other stuff, this business that I've been running for the last 15 years is falling apart, and He just knew that I needed some brothers with me to walk through this time in my life because it was really going to be tough. And I had to recenter, refocus, and stop living a reactive life and start getting back to being proactive about my recovery. It's funny how Jesus and God will line up everything perfectly if you just get out of his way. And you know what else is cool? Our step study this year, because we started it in February, lined up with all of the teachings this year, right? So we would learn things on Tuesday nights in our step study, and then the lesson would be taught the following Thursday. So it was like you're getting on Tuesday, getting on Thursday, and not only am I walking through things with my step study brothers, but I'm also able to stay in line with y'all as we go through the year. It was really cool aspect to that step study. So tonight, we are going to dive a little deeper into Principle 7, Step 10, and Step 11 that Allie introduced to y'all a couple of weeks ago. So Principle 7 reads, reserve a daily time with God for self-examination, Bible reading, and prayer in order to know God and his will for my life and gain the power to follow his will. Step 10 says, we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, properly admitted it. So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. 1 Corinthians 10:12. And step 11 says, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Let the message of Christ, I always want to go, Christ dwell in you richly, Colossians 3:16. As I said earlier, this year is almost over. We have worked through 6 out of 8 of the principles and 9 out of 12 of the steps, okay? We've came out of denial from our struggles, realized we were powerless to our character defects and the medications we use to cope with them. We decided, to give them to God in Principle 3, and then it was time to go to work, doing the hard stuff in our Step 4 inventory and our Step 5 telling our accountability teams and sponsors about it. And then figuring out in Principle 6 who we owe amends to, who we need to offer forgiveness to, and how that is important for our growth and our recovery. So it's real easy to get complacent after Principle 6. Am I right? I mean, what else is there left to do? I mean, we've done all the hard stuff. My side of the street is clean at this point. I'm not mad at anybody. I don't think anybody's mad at me. So what else is there left to do? Well, tonight I'm here to tell you what's left to do. Yes, the past is behind you. Okay, that's great. True growth right there. But do you think the enemy is like, oh, well, they too far along in their recovery now, I can't touch them? I'm glad y'all laughed because that is funny. Paul wrote half of the New Testament, right? He also wrote what's found in Romans right here in 7:15. I don't really understand myself, for I do what is right. I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. We are no different than Paul. And if we don't have a plan, we will slip right back into what got us here in the first place. Or even, like I did, find out that you struggle with another character defect that will put you back at Principle 1, Step 1 as well. So how do we continue to keep our recovery first? We have to learn to put Jesus first. We have to learn to put Jesus first, y'all. He is the only reason that you made it this far. Whether it's 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, or 20 years, you didn't do it without Jesus, period. And if you want to keep moving forward, your relationship with God has to be your top priority. Plain and simple. So what does that look like? Well, let's look at the first sentence of Principle 7. And you probably have this in your bulletin. Reserve a daily time with God for self-examination. That means we have to revisit the inventory process. Raise your hand if you're happy about that. Come on, y'all. We're not going back to what we've already gotten through. All right, let me relieve your brains on that. That stuff is ancient history. There's no reason to revisit what we have already worked through. What I'm meaning here is this is more of a state of mind than anything else, okay? We aren't just doing an inventory. We are living an inventory, if this makes sense, all right? If it doesn't make sense, let me help. Matter of fact, let's let Jesus help here because he gave us a daily checklist in Matthew 22, 37 through 40. Pretty simple in words, a little harder to put into action, but you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. It's easy to say, but a little harder to put into practice, ain't it? Especially when somebody makes you mad. But here's the point. These aren't suggestions, y'all. Jesus didn't just suggest this. These are commandments. These are what he says we need to do if we're to follow him, if we're to pick up our cross and follow Jesus every day. So when you are doing your daily inventory, ask yourself, do I love my neighbor as myself today? Did I treat everyone today how I want to be treated? Or, if you struggle with codependency like I do, have you loved yourself as much as you've loved your neighbor today? James said in chapter 1, verse 22, do not just merely listen to the word and deceive yourself. Do what it says. I met with he's our marriage counselor, but I meet with him one-on-one a lot of times. And I met with him this morning, and we were discussing the difference between a believer and a Christ follower. Okay? A believer can merely listen to the word and deceive himself. But if you do what it says, and you pick up your cross and you carry it with you and you follow Jesus every single day and you pick up your Bible and you pray and you do all the things, you are going to be a Christ follower, not just a believer. Hear me when I say this, y'all. Y'all write this one down. You may be the only Bible someone gets to read. You may be the only Bible someone gets to read. You may be the reason someone puts down the bottle. You may be the reason that someone quits clicking on porn. Someone may see Jesus in you and get new life, right? Looking at you and saying, I want what he's got. I want the happiness that she has. 1 Thessalonians 1:5. Our very lives were further proof to you the truth of our message. We need to walk the talk. Walk the talk, y'all. So, there are 3 different types of inventories we can do to help maintain a healthy recovery. They are ongoing. Y'all can go, there's a list already in your bulletin. I'll go ahead and give you all 3 right off the jump. Ongoing, daily, and periodic. Let's break down each one. An ongoing inventory is basically how we go about our day. The best time to admit when we are wrong is when we are made aware of it, whether it's by our own conscience, by God, or hopefully not, by someone else. All right? And I've been guilty of all 3, but for the most part, my conscience speaks to me the loudest. This inventory, for the most part, is done inside our heads. Okay? This has to become a practice on a constant basis. If we are consistently paying attention to the words that come out of our mouths, whether they're sideways or not, we immediately have a chance to ask for forgiveness. James 3:7 says, people can tame all kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and fish, but no one can tame the tongue. It is restless and evil, full of deadly poison. Y'all, we're recording these teaches now for our YouTube channel, CR's YouTube channel, mainly for folks that can't make it one week or another for any reason. Maybe their kid has something going on, or they're sick, or whatever the case may be. Life happens, right? I say all this because I ran into a friend the other day at the Ace Hardware, and he comes here regularly on Thursday nights. And I asked him if it was on a Thursday that we ran into him, and I asked him if he was coming that night. And he said, no, his kid's got something going on. I was like, okay, cool. We got this YouTube channel now that you can check out the teachers because you can't make it, right? And he was like, awesome, man, this is cool. This is really exactly what I need. And then as I'm leaving, I say to him, hey, now don't use this as an excuse not to come to CR. This is a great friend of mine. He's done immeasurably things for me, man. Proverbs 16:23 says, intelligent people think before they speak. What they say is then more persuasive. So after I took my foot out of my mouth, I immediately sent him a text and told him I was sorry. Even then, I didn't feel better about it until I called him and actually was able to hear his voice and him hear mine, and me tell him that I was sorry again. But y'all, that's what an ongoing inventory is for, okay? If you practice this regularly, you will immediately start noticing when you were wrong. Then you will have the choice, and it's a choice, to make things right, all right? Or you can let pride get in the way, you can internalize it, and you can head back to your next step study, because that's where you're headed, back to step one, principle one, all right? So the next kind of inventory is a daily inventory. And here is where I want to spend a good bit of our time tonight. So I'm going to ask y'all to raise your hands here. Y'all journaling? Oh, wow. That's awesome. About 30%. What's the other 70% of y'all doing? Come on now, be honest. Do you sit down every night or most nights or mornings and write down your day? To be honest, y'all, I struggled here in the past. Really struggled here in the past. Journaling is a discipline, plain and simple. It is something you have to be intentional about, or you will decide not to do it, I promise. There again, internalizing your feelings, you might as well get yourself ready for another step study, because it's coming. What about your quiet time with the Lord? Y'all spending a daily time with the Lord like Principle 7 says? If you're wondering how that looks, let me explain to you, or trying to kind of give you a description of what mine looks like. Every morning I get up, I make some coffee, and I sit down with my notebook and my Bible, and I spend some time with God. Some mornings are harder than others. Sometimes, Walker may have something going on. He's got to be at school early, or I've got to leave to go to work earlier, or whatever the case may be. Life happens. I get that. You're not going to be perfect at this. But I do my best to start my day with Jesus. And being honest, journaling hasn't been a part of that for very long. But because I'm already reserving a daily time with God, I might as well do some self-examination, right? So I'll start my mornings now with my journal. Then I go right into a gratitude list, okay? Because when you journal, people come to your brain and instances come to your brain that you want to write down on the gratitude list, because I promise you, gratitude list, it is real hard to start your day wrong if you start your day with a gratitude list. I'll follow that up with a small prayer, asking God to show me what He wants me to see today and where He is at work, so I can go and join Him. Then I read a little from the Old Testament, some from Psalms, some from Proverbs, and then some from the New Testament. I write down what I feel God is speaking to me over my life, and I finish up my quiet time every day with a prayer list and some more time in prayer. Journaling every day helps you keep in tune with the good things that are going on and the bad. It also helps you to see where you have maybe missed an opportunity to make things right with someone in your ongoing inventory, and then you have a chance to make amends and possibly save that relationship. Because whether we know it or not, we may leave a conversation with someone and hurt their feelings and not even realized it until we have time to stop and think about what we've done or what we've said. So, someone in this room right now is asking me, this sounds great, dude. Journaling, it sounds awesome. How do I get started? All right? And I've got to fly. So Galatians 5:22, but the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against these things. So start every day with one of these, and they are in your bulletin. But if you want to, you got them. You can put them up on the screen, Kevin. You can take a picture of that one real quick. I'm not going to go through these. And then the next one, Kevin, take a picture of that one. If y'all, they're on the bulletin. They're in the bulletin. Now, y'all, this is just a way to get started. As you start to spend time with the Lord on a daily basis, He will guide your steps in this as well. All right? You will develop your own quiet time with Him, right? Because your quiet time will become unique to your relationship with the Lord. The last inventory I want to talk about, and I'm going to go real quick here, is periodic inventory. This is an inventory that is done on a quarterly basis. Every 3 months or so, we need to sit down with our journals, find a quiet place with just ourselves and God, and review the last 3 months of our lives and meditate on the growth that we've had or the growth that we haven't had in that period of time. I was on my way back from Macon a month or so ago, maybe a little more than that, and I stopped by Scott's house, and he was in the middle of a periodic inventory. And I thought to myself, this guy's been at Celebrate Recovery for a little more than a year, and he's doing a periodic inventory. All right? I've been in recovery for over 5 years, done 3 step studies, and I have yet to do a periodic inventory. You know why? Because you got to journal first. Because it's hard to remember 3 months back. Needless to say, I wasn't doing that. But now, y'all, I can't wait to do one. I got like 1 more month left before I can sit down and do that. I am anxious almost to see how my life has changed in the last 3 months. All right, so as I wrap up this lesson tonight, y'all, I want to use a quote I got from a man by the name of Nick Saban. Raise your hand if you like Nick Saban. Go Dogs. But anyway, us Georgia fans could probably care less about what he says, but there is no denying the leadership qualities that this man possesses. He said, you're going to suffer through one or two things in life, either the pain of discipline or the pain of disappointment. Daily inventory, y'all, is a learned behavior. Just like our hurts, hang-ups, and habits were learned behaviors, so this has to be. I don't like disappointment. I spent most of my life in that. What I do know is that there's no disappointment when we make Jesus the center of our lives. And that takes discipline. Living out principles 7 and 8 and steps 10 through 12 takes continued work. It takes ownership. It takes honesty. It takes discipline. You know, I had a mentor one time tell me that if I lived out these 2 principles and these 3 steps, there wasn't a need to take multiple step studies. It's hard to get your street dirty if you're walking around with a broom in your hand. See, recovery can have a cycle of insanity as well. If we are just going through the motions and our walk isn't matching our talk, not working out these steps and principles in everything we do, trying to get through it as fast as you can, like I did that Bible study, we're going to be right back at principle 1, step 1 before we know it. So slow down, y'all. Your life is not too busy to make time for God. Recovery doesn't have a finish line. We will never be celebrate recovered. Never. But what we can be is that Bible someone can read. So, one last challenge, and then I'm going to give it to Melissa. Tonight in your small groups, I challenge everyone, and I look back there in the cabinet. We got plenty of blue chips. I challenge every one of you that's not journaling to take a blue chip to start. Thanks for letting me share.